Welcome to Jade Kind Gaming. I'm Adam. Today I'm going to be, doing a discussion of GameMastery Cards. I have quite a few different of their card lines. A lot of them are now empty boxes that I've emptied out, and a lot of them I store organized in some cases. GameMastery Cards are from the GameMastery line by Paizo, which does Pathfinder, and pretty much they work along with the Pathfinder game to do other stuff. Let's see. The boxes for all the old ones. A lot of them are item cards. I have quite a few item cards. Probably regular playing cards in the deck. That's another thing. In the box where I have cards, I do have a regular playing card deck in there as well. Always find easy, or convenient, to have playing cards when gaming. It's like a different kind of deck. Anyways, as far as just item cards that I have this entire case of item cards. And they're from the sets, the Essential Starter set, Wondrous Treasure, the Legacy of Fire, Second Darkness, Elements of Power, Curse of the Crimson Throne, Weapons Locker, and Adventure Gear. These cards are some of them are from some of their campaign sets. Others are just random items so that you have. And I'm not going to go through all of them, of course. I'll take out a big chunk. Let's go through the section in the front. Because they have them broken down. If we go over here, and they have like armors. I have them by this. Armors are going to have this border, you see, from all the sets that they come in. And then when we get to weapons, you see the border changes. If we were to go to just normal adventuring gear, it's a different border again. Each different sort of category of stuff has a different border. It has an image on it on one end, image and what it is. And like, for example, in different sets you'll find these are both leather suits, but different art. And if you look at the back, first off, ignore those. I did those. It'll say leather suit. That's 7 of 110, and leather suit 3 of 50. They're numbered at the top for the set they come in. The one that looked very traditional, it has a description. Although aged, this coat made from broad stripes of dyed leather is still quite fitting and comfortable. Then it just has a big white section for notes, and then an item code line. And then this other one, which has like clouds and stuff. It says light blue, silk embroidered with white cloudscapes and decorative with down feathers disguises the utility of this armor. Those are both leather suits. And you see, I have these numbers. I did those essentially 1 and 2. For leather suit. Then you go to padded armor. It's going to be 1. Scale mail 1. Studded leather on the side 1. Studded leather again 2. I went through each of the different items. I went through actually the entire thing. And anywhere where there was more than one of a card, I numbered them. And then essentially I have an Excel sheet where I could put in, leather armor 1, leather armor 2, and I could write any magical properties that has for a given campaign. It just gives me a way to keep track of it. And I do that because I can give these out as loot. I recently finished a campaign where I was really using the cards pretty heavily. I was running a Pathfinder game, and I used them heavily. And I did that these character sheets, binders. I gave them binders with the front character sheet on one side, back character sheet on there. One of the great things about that is, like, with a vis-a-vis marker, you know, you can keep track of, you know, health, wipe it away, change it. That was one of the great things about the binders, but also it gave me spots for these sheets, which allowed me to then, you know, they have, I'll get to these, they have cards in the sheets. They can see the back where the number is, and therefore, as they, you know, they can figure out notes about their item. It also gave them a spot to keep notes for the player. So binder character sheets were fun, but I probably won't do them again until I'm running a game where I'm living, because we usually play at a friend's house, and having I think at that time I had 9 players, so carrying 9 binders plus the one that I used for the heavy one that I used for all the campaign notes, that got tedious. Yeah, so I'm probably not gonna, you know, rush into the binder carrying again, but it probably once I, you know, live somewhere where I have enough space to run games at my own place, I probably will again, because it was great, just some of the utility of the binder. And those are a lot of the item cards. I even had, I have a few more. I have the Serpent Skull item cards, and I have other ones I separated in this other box, because a lot of them were the ones I was using. I sampled stuff from the Serpent's Call, Adventure Path, or whatever, for that campaign. See, some other types of cards are condition cards. The condition cards are the kind of thing that you would, essentially, whenever someone is helpless, staggered, sickened, shaken, grappled, incorporeal, prone, confused, fascinated, entangled, fatigued, paralyzed, flat-footed. You could hand them the card, and they have the rules for that written down on it. It's a really good, quick way to be able to reference, you know, all those different conditions. There were essentially 4 for each card, and they're each double-sided. They each have a thing. I also used, in my GM binder, I had a sheet where I just had access to one of each of them. So that, you know, it was easy for me to reference it, you know, sort of as a replacement for a GM screen for those kind of abilities. So those were really, you know, convenient, and those, you know, those are the kind of cards I'll probably end up using again, because they would be the kind of thing you would hand them while the condition lasts, so they just can reference the rules for their turn that it lasts or whatever, and then, you know, take it back after that. Another set of cards that they have that I got 2 different decks of, they had their Plot Twist cards, and then their Plot Twist cards Flashback series. And those are going to be these cards. Right here. They all, from both sets, they all share the same back, so you can totally mix them up with the back and draw random cards, which is good. But the cards have, you know, little images that, you know, they're Paizo. They always have great art, and then they have the word like triumph, and then they have this little black box. Target's next critical threat is automatically confirmed. That is like a statistical benefit in game. You can totally, you know, that, and they could essentially turn in this card for that, or ultimately however you want to use them. That's how I did. Or they have these things. A victory spawns overconfidence. The promise of glory fuels bravery. Success inspires confidence. And all know of your conquests. The whole idea behind those is that instead of turning it in for that small statistical benefit, they could turn it into modify the plot, to add a plot twist to the game. Which can work well, or it can completely derail the game. So I may not be using these, or I may be using them different if I use them again. But they were interesting. Ultimately, they had a large part to play with how the campaign ended. Once the players knew the campaign was ending, they're like, oh, let's make it end our way. Yeah, they had fun. I guess it works. Let's see. There is this. They have face cards, and those are blank, notes, NPC code, whatever, on the back, and then on the front they has to have a picture. The pictures from somewhere, just in some of their random books. Some of them I know are pretty. Had some gruesome guys. What are some of them that are clearly enemies? That's a ghost. But then you end up with some sweet looking people too, if I remember. Gypsy character. Guy looks sad. He's happy. See, there's a happy guy. Anyways, so the whole point with the NPCs cards, and they have different sets of those, is to be able to essentially create you could write little notes on the NPC on the back, and you can draw random NPCs for a situation. It was something that I was considering, never got around to in that campaign. But even if you just keep them there, just to sort of say you run into someone and you just have, here's a face, just to give your players a face to go with who's talking, that's an awesome benefit of those. The chase cards. The chase cards are fun. The chase card deck, first off, comes with, 2 double-sided rules cards. It's been a while since I've read them or used them, and I think they're coming out with a new chase card deck. But essentially, the backs are, all the same. They mix in. And if you go to the face of the cards, you can divide them. They're yellow. I'm card efficient. I think that's green and purple. But essentially, dungeon, forest, urban. And so essentially, you would probably, you'd probably have one of those settings for where a chase is taking place, and you would essentially, decide, all right, I'm gonna do an urban chase. So you would shuffle up your cards, whatever, and you would lay them out. If it's 3 things on a chase, you could put essentially character markers on them. And each turn they would move forward, and you could, reveal, alright, there's a clothesline. And essentially they have to make one of 2 checks. It has, the art, the title, sort of description, and then improvised tightrope. They could do an acrobatics DC 20 check, or hand over hand shuffle, a climb DC 25 check. So whichever one they'd be best at in order to move to the next card, which could be a steep rooftop. They gotta run up a steep rooftop. It's easier than a dungeon wall. They can do a climb DC 10, or don't fall, make a reflex DC of 20. Then they could get on to the third one, which is a crowded street. And follow the crowd, sense motive DC 15, or out of my way, they could overrun, combat maneuver dice of 20. And then after they defeat that, they could essentially get to the end. Whether they're chasing someone else or trying to get away from someone chasing them. And they have, different things. Spooked horse, collapsed roof, a fruit cart, blocked path. In the forest, tangled forest, angry bees, blocked path. Each one has 2 different ways that it can be overcome. For for cities, forests, and dungeons. And essentially, you can sort of set up what is, a series of obstacles, a different kind of encounter. That was the whole point behind it. Is it's an encounter, but it works different than just combat. It's an interesting way to do chases, to make it where it's somewhat random and come up with interesting ideas for things that they have to overcome during the chase. And then I have two. Let's see, I think I'm on the last two. Let's see. Yeah, and then the last two products from the GameMastery Cards that I've tried so far are the Critical Hit Deck and the Critical Fumble Deck. And these are fun. And potentially devastating. Critical Hit Deck. For one, Critical Hit Deck has all of that. That's on all its backs. Critical Fumble is going to be this. All that. So Critical Hit Deck first. Essentially they would draw a random card, and that card is going to tell them some information. Essentially, you have 4 on every one for bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, and magic. So depending on the type of damage that they did, it has a different effect. This card, for example, if they did bludgeoning damage, staggering blow. And these are instead of doubling the damage, and if I remember correctly, like if you have like a higher multiple, then you would get to draw multiple cards and choose which effect you do. But anyway, so staggering blow, normal damage, and double non-lethal damage. Alright? So in other words, you do your normal damage, and then you would do non-lethal damage on top of it. Piercing, heart shot, triple damage, and 1 con bleed. And they go over bleed rules in like the rules cards in here. Although it works like you'd think. Slashing, leg swipe, double damage, and target is knocked prone. And magic, normal damage and target frightened for 1d4 rounds, will negates. Some of them, are they have, and there's a lot of cards. Essentially, there's a bunch of cards. This one. So, some of them, it's bludgeoning, just triple damage. Piercing, normal damage, and 1d2 con damage that they can't heal naturally. Slashing, double damage, and plus 4 to your AC for 1 round. So in other words, you're better off on your next turn. And then magic phased. Double damage and target is incorporeal for 1d3 rounds, will negates. So it's really the magic ones that have, getting critical hits with magic becomes quite fun with these cards. Some of them are, Shrink Ray, Corrosive, Arcane Goo, Planar Rift. Target is sent to a random plane. Will negates. I could totally just remove your target from the game altogether. It's like, alright, that enemy is now gone. Did they die? No. But they're in, the plane of air now. They're no longer our problem. Just some interesting things that critical hits, which, one of the things I did is I used them, where not only the players drew them, but also where the enemies, if the critical hit was confirmed against the players, the enemies had them too. So that was sort of the trade-off with that. And then the Critical Fumble Deck is divided melee, ranged, natural, and magic attacks. In this one, melee stuck. Your weapon is stuck in a nearby surface. D20 strength check to free it. Ranged. You take a -2 penalty on all ranged attack rolls for 1d4 minutes. Archer's Elbow. Natural, off balance. You can only make a move action next round, or magic. Spell Shield. Your target gains spell resistance equal to 11 plus your caster level for 1d6 rounds. Then, just another example. Melee, Funny Bone. You drop whatever is in your offhand. Ranged, Not My Pony. Your attack hits the nearest allied animal or mount. Oh man, I'd hate if one of my companion, my party members did that to me. Natural, Bad Headbutt. You are stunned for 1 round. Fort negates. Or magic. You cannot cast this spell for 24 hours. So the fumble ones were really the ones that were really scary for the players, because some of them are pretty devastating if you get a critical fumble. So there were, that was fun too. I also had it where the enemies would do those if they critical fumbled, which made for some great moments when the enemy was attacking one of them and had a critical fumble. and just, essentially now all of a sudden the party was boosted up, and whatever happened to help them because the enemy screwed themselves over. Those were some very great laughable times. So there's quite a few different Game Mastery card lines, and they're coming out with more regularly. They're an interesting way to add additional stuff to the game, different additional components, that kind of thing. They can get cumbersome if you do too many, especially if you're just figuring them out. That's one of the things I think I messed up with, is I tried to incorporate critical hits, critical fumbles, item cards, the plot twist cards, condition cards, one use of the chase cards at a point, and I was going to also do the urban NPCs all into this one campaign when I'm learning them for the first time. That was not the best. So, that was obnoxious, because it's all of a sudden all these new rules. But as far as just, the general basis of them, the critical hit and critical fumble, I got pretty smooth. They were, down pretty easy. And some of the other ones had promise. It would just, take some working with to figure out the best way to implement them. The binders were awesome. Binders, to be able to give them spots to hold cards and write on, that was a cool character sheet idea. Which, ultimately, I came up with this for something to write on because I needed somewhere to hold these so that I could give out the cards that I needed to give them. Because the goal, if the campaign lasted longer, would be that I'd eventually just do random loot from the entire box. But I ended the campaign sooner because I discovered GURPS. And I'm going to give that a try for a while. But as far as, the GameMastery cards work really well with Pathfinder. Generally, they'd probably work with 3.5, with very little modification. Some of them reference combat maneuver bonus and that kind of, other than some minor references that you have to sort of convert over, they work. So I'll link to, somewhere where you can buy at least a lot of those different kind of cards. Or I got, these are one of the ones, a lot of these I actually just got from the local hobby shop. Even though, online sales, we'll have sales a lot more than the hobby shop. These, a lot of them are, convenient enough, and they were easy to find there. That's one of the other things with the shops that I have around here, is their stock varies from time to time. But there were ones that, a lot of them were just available at the local hobby shop. That's always great to support. Went and did that the other day. But, yeah, so I'll link to them online if you'd rather get them there if you don't have a local gaming store yourself. Otherwise, just have a great day. Bye.